Alright. Hello. Well, I'm Michael, and today I'm going to be talking, well, I would say, a little experience on being single and marriage. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be calling this. So, here we go. The first thing that the Lord was kind of teaching me on, and this was over several years that the Lord was actually teaching me on this topic. But, had a dream about these two women before I even met them. And at one point, before that all happened, and God was saying, your wife is coming, and something that pertained to that person. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And I would later even question, was that from the Lord or not? But as I would later learn, it was. But not in quite the sense that most people would take that as. See, one of the things I wanted to get into a bit was, me and this one person, we became very close friends. Very close. And close friend of the opposite sex, okay, you're not married, that's fine. But when, you start having other church members, had one person is like, she would make a nice wife, and I kind of gained some pressure from other people, and I think she was kind of gaining some pressure from other people about that too, possibly. I'm not sure, because, yeah. So, automatically, most people would say, okay, she must be the person I am going to be marrying that God wants me to marry. Well, that was not what I did. And what I ended up doing was going to the Lord, right? And it's like, Lord, is she the one I am to marry? And for me, I was like, okay, I know I'm not, because what God was actually doing and part of being friends with this opposite sex of the person was he was revealing some insecurities that I had. And he also was using this as a way of taking me through the refiner's fire with this relationship. So, automatically, I'm like, okay, Lord, don't know. I kind of need a sign here. Okay? And I was like, Lord, I know if she... I was like, I knew in myself I wasn't going to be the one to initiate it. Okay? And that's partly because, the whole insecurity that I had. But the other side of the coin was I could see if she were to pressure me into like a relationship. I told guys, like, I could see that happening, that I would follow that path if she were to pressure me. And so I kind of prayed, Lord, you direct this relationship in the direction that you want me to go in. And sure enough, sometime later, things really started getting crazy with her. She started acting weird. I would only learn later, and that's probably maybe a year later, or a year and a half, that she actually thought I wanted to date her when I didn't want to. But God was making that clear to me, and I was like, okay. So, what was actually going on here? Even though the Lord was telling me that she was my wife, yeah, I'm not to marry her? Okay, there's a conflicting stuff that was going on here, and at that time I didn't fully understand that. So in 2 Samuel chapter 18, no, 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 1, and this is kind of the relationship that I felt that we had. And it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul that the soul of Jonathan was knitted with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. All right? So here's the thing I wanted to kind of point out is our spirit is joined with Christ. That is a marriage supper of the Lamb. Right here, this is a, if you will, knitting of the soul. It's like a marriage, the two becoming one kind of deal. That was the kind of relationship that God was actually pointing at that it was supposed to be. It was not supposed to be a marriage, like a flesh, like joining of the flesh. In marriage, it's, the two flesh shall become one. Right here, what God was really showing me was it was a Jonathan, David type of relationship. And that's really what he was actually focusing on. And so that's a lot of times. So, yeah, if the Lord points out to you that someone has to be your wife or your husband, okay, Lord, that's great. Now am I to marry that person? And I think that's where a lot of people kind of get tripped up on, is that, okay, God spoke to me about this person being my wife or my husband, and so automatically, you think, I've got to marry this person. And that's not always the case. He may be doing something else with that. And I want to just stress, is like, if the Lord is telling you something of that nature, seek Him on whether it's an actual marriage or just a good relationship, friendship. And the thing is, with David and Jonathan, they were both warriors, okay? And so they had a fight together, and so God brought them together to be able to fight together. All right? So you kind of understand what's going on here. And the one thing that happened with this one friend is that we had a group that would meet at this one church, and she was the pastor's daughter, obviously. I'm just pointing that out. And so she was, invited to become part of the leadership in that group. And I was thinking, we get along so well that, I saw this as a really good opportunity to do some kingdom work ministry. But being a lady and a female, she kind of had that principle and that stigma that, women aren't to preach, aren't to lead, and all that other stuff. So she never went down that path. She basically declined the offer, and I wish she would have accepted it and actually stepped into some type of a leadership role, because I thought me and her being close friends as we are, that would be a good kingdom work ministry. And seeing that the Lord kind of put us both together, because I saw that as God doing that. But then, since she kind of rejected the work, this is what ended up happening to her. And like I said, she was the pastor's daughter. We were meeting at a church, our group, that some people were part of this church, but not everybody. So this is what God kind of showed me later on during the whole process of that relationship. And I want to go to, let's see, oops. I have it bookmarked here. To Judges, chapter 14, starting at verse 3. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleased me well. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, that at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So right there was an event. I'm not getting into all the details, but God was kind of showing me, even though I did nothing really wrong at that time, they kind of took everything out of context and over-exaggerated, and yeah. And God was showing me that one event and all that happened was of him to seek an occasion to break that dominion over your life that person had. Because first off, what was it? They were not willing to step into leadership or in the place that God had placed them to do and to go in. And so God had to basically remove them. And I do believe that even though God was having that being a time of refiner's fire for me, there's things in the past that I found were not very biblical that they've done. One of the things also is that church had a very Jezebelic spirit to the place, which I would later find out. And because of all the confusion going on, it was very hard to understand why God was saying that she's my wife, but not marry her, because there was so much confusion going on. And even though in my spirit I felt this is more of a David-Jonathan type relationship that I had with her. And so God was basically using this to further things, and I believe also to bring judgment. Because if you remember what Moses said, what God said to Moses, you know, get down from here so that my anger may rise and that I may wipe all of Israel out. But of course, you know, Moses pleaded for Israel and then destroy them. But God sometimes has to let his anger actually increase to a level that he's willing to actually destroy them. Yeah. You think, because what does God say? He's slow to anger, isn't he? And so when something happens and he brings somebody in to cause his anger, because remember, that's something that most people don't fully understand, that God will bring you into a situation, into a group of a people, and you feel like you're getting persecuted, but God's using that to increase his anger against that group, that he may bring about a judgment on that people, because he's seen in the past how they've been mistreating the other people in the past. And mistreating someone that's actually mistreating that person back, God's anger is not going to really increase. Okay? So it's when you act righteously that God can actually bring the judgment on a person. And usually when God brings a judgment on a person, you're not going to like that he brings the judgment on a person. Most of the time you're not. But that's kind of the way God expects us to love our enemies. Alright? It's our job to love our enemies. It's God's job to judge our enemies. We're not to be the judge. Unless God says, you know, go smite them. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case. What I also found interesting was, I'm not going to say what her name was exactly, but her name actually did mean Delilah. And she was at one point my boss. And if anybody knows the story of Samson and Delilah, yeah, that's a story in itself. So, and yeah, this person whose name did mean Delilah, she did kind of get my heart going a little bit. I did like, I mean, she was very pleasing to the eyes, obviously. But then again, I think that was part of the test, you know. First, I went through the whole thing with the kind of the Samson, the Philistine thing, and then being tempted by a Delilah in my life, obviously. So this is kind of one of those things that the Lord had taken me through. And in the process, kind of learned a few things. So I hope that's a blessing to someone out there. And God bless to you all. Amen.